Hi learners, let us also look at this example. In this case, we want to look at the x-coordinates of the turning point of the cubic function. Now, in the earlier lesson, I told you that if you want to find the x-coordinate of the turning points of the cubic function or the cubic graph, the first thing you need to do is to determine the first derivative of the function. So we write g prime of x is equal to negative 3 times 1 or 3 times negative 1. You can just say it like that. So 3 times negative 1. So that will give us negative 3. Then we subtract 1 from the power. So when we subtract 1 from the power, we are going to have 2. Now we have 2 times 1. That gives us 2. And then from the power, we subtract 1. So what will be left is 1. So x has a power of 1. We are here again where x has a power of 1. So 1 times 8 will give us 8. Now 1 minus 1 will give us 0. So x has a power of 0. So the answer becomes 1. 1 times 8 is 8. This is a constant as we discussed in the previous lesson. Therefore, the derivative of a constant is 0. Therefore, the derivative of negative 12 is 0. So this is the first derivative of the function. Now, we can now proceed by determining the x-coordinate of the turning points of the cubic function. What we need to do is to first say g prime of x is equal to 0. So when the first derivative of a function or the first derivative of a cubic function is equal to 0, that means we are looking for the x-coordinates of the turning point. So what is the first derivative here, or what is the g prime of x equal to? It is equal to negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 8. So if the whole of this is the same as g prime of x, then we can now say the whole of this is also equal to 0. So we now have negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 8 is equal to 0. So now this is a quadratic equation, obviously. So we can do something about it. What do you think? So we can quickly say we either solve it directly or we can divide through the equation by negative 1 to allow us to just do it easily. So if we divide everything by negative 1, we will say this 1 divided by negative 1 becomes positive 3x squared. Positive 2x divided by negative 1 will give us negative 2x. Then positive 8 divided by negative 1 will give us negative 8, all equal to 0. We can factorize this. You all know how to do the factorization, and so I'll just quickly write it down. So basically we'll have x minus 2 and 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. Remember, there are various ways of doing your factorization. You can even use completing the square method, and you can also using the brackets or completing the square, or you can factorize completely. Whichever way you use, it's all the same once the results are equal. So now we have the two brackets that are equal to 0. So obviously we know that x minus 2 should be equal to 0. This is the product rule, as you know about. So 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now x, what we need to do is to, since we have minus 2 here, we will say the inverse operation of negative 2. is positive 2. So meaning we are adding 2 to both sides of the equation. So when we add 2 here, this becomes 0, and when we add 2 here, this becomes 2. So that is why we have 2 on this side. Now on this side, the inverse operation for positive 4 is negative 4. What it means is that we are subtracting 4 from both sides of the equation. So when we subtract 4 here, this becomes 0. So when we subtract 4 here, we get negative 4. Now this one is done, but we need to continue with the other side of the equation. So we have 3x here. So the 3 is multiplying x. So the inverse operation for multiplication is division. So it means we are dividing both sides by 3. Therefore, if we divide this by 3, it gives us 1. We divide this by 3, we get negative 4 over 3, or negative 4 out of 3. So basically, these are the x coordinates of the two turning points of the cubic graph. That is what we can explain in this part of our lesson. So in our next lesson, we will then determine what we call it the x coordinates of the point of inflection. Thank you.